This woman was hiding under the bed. She saw her husband being tortured by the killer. Her husband moaned in pain, but she didn't dare make a sound. Then her husband was thrown onto the bed. The killer's boss asked her where the diamonds and the USB stick were. It turned out that Annie was a top agent. After retiring, she started robbing banks. Today, they hijacked a bank manager and deciphered the codes. They then broke into the vault and stole many diamonds. But Annie didn't notice that there was a USB key in the pile of diamonds. When she got out, she gave the diamonds to her husband. But at night, a group of assassins rushed in. Fortunately, Annie reacted quickly and hid under the bed. But then she remembered she hadn't forgotten. They had the USB key. Annie followed the direction of the knife and saw the USB key under the bed. She quickly removed it and hid it in her underwear. But then the assailant stabbed Annie through the bed, and she could only bite the carpet. Shortly afterwards, her husband died, tortured to death by the assassin. Annie wept with sadness. Finally, the killers returned, and Annie climbed out from under the bed. She picked up the gun from the floor and followed it to the killer's boss. Just as she was about to fire, she realized the gun was empty. Annie rushed back to her room. She grabbed another magazine, replaced it, and shot the fat man in front of the door. She then turned away from the fat man and retreated to the elevator entrance. But Annie didn't make it to the first floor. She fled down the stairwell. Seeing this, the head of the killers hurried to send his men after her. Annie reached the laundry room and jumped into the pipe before the killers arrived. Annie took refuge in a friend's house and kept the killers away for a while. She opened the elevator and let the killers in. He sat her in the doorway, gun raised, waiting for the killers to enter and die. But as the killers were about to arrive, Annie suddenly realized something was wrong. The killers rushed in with their guns, but they couldn't find Annie. The boss saw the window open and thought Annie had escaped, but Annie's right on top of him. She can't hold on much longer. Blood is pouring from the wound on the bottom of her foot. The woman runs frantically towards her son. She was about to run away with her son. She grabs her son and tries to run out the back door. She's stopped by another assassin. The boss took the bag containing the diamonds and stomped on the boy. Then he picked up the phone and left. He left his men to deal with the mother and son. The boy took the opportunity to hide in the fireplace while they talked. One of the killers went after him and was about to pull him out when Annie arrived just in time. Annie arrived just in time and kicked the man away. She then jumped over the sofa and punched the attacker, lifting his foot and killing him. She grabbed her gun and leg and was about to kill the other killer when she realized he was gone. The man tells Annie to drop her gun, but Annie pretends to obey and stabs the man in the foot. Furious, the man pushes Annie against the wall before being attacked by the woman, who wakes up. The man is quickly knocked unconscious by the two women. Annie then takes the killer's phone and goes to the hotel. She discovered that they were in the process of disposing of the body. She followed them to the killer's lair. Fatty had just had his foot treated when he was taken hostage by Annie. Annie called the boss and offered to exchange Fatty for the diamonds, but the boss didn't care about Fatty. He just asked him to hand over the USB key. When the boss and the others arrived, Annie had disappeared. What's more, she'd left them a surprise. The boss was furious and vowed to kill Annie. But when he got to the second floor, Annie came out and pulled the boss's tie, threatening to hand over the diamonds. But this time, Annie is reckless and doesn't realize that there's another assassin behind her. The woman is tied to a chair. The killer places her left leg in an iron vise. As the bolts tighten, the leg deforms. Annie can't stand the pain and gives in. Annie and her partner agree to exchange the USB key at the airport, but the boss took a knife and plunged it into Annie's leg. He simply wanted to prevent Annie from pulling another trick. The group arrives at the airport. The companion disguised herself as a passerby and bumped into them on purpose. She then handed the keys to Annie. Annie told the boss that the USB key was hidden in the airport locker, but the boss was afraid of fraud and asked Annie to open the locker herself. So Annie cooperated with the boss and took out the case containing the USB key, but the boss was still worried and asked Annie to open the case in front of him. When he saw the USB key inside, he still didn't trust Annie, so he asked his men to check again. Suddenly,
oh shit!
Annie had framed the boss. Furious, the boss pinched Annie's wound, but she kicked him away. He drew his pistol, but Annie slapped him away. The boss took the opportunity to strangle Annie's neck, but Annie let out a loud yell and touched the USB stick he was reaching for in the boss's tie. Annie smiles weakly and suddenly sneaks away and quickly takes advantage of the chaos to flee. The boss picks up his pistol but finds the police everywhere, so he has to leave the airport before making any plans. But when he arrives at the gate, he's surrounded by police. Annie follows him and reminds him that his tie is crooked.
Done!
The boss, seriously wounded by Annie, ends up dead, and the diamond robbery is solved. Annie is cleared of suspicion and flies abroad. Annie takes the USB key and gives it to her friend, but after inserting the key into the computer, both are shocked by its contents. It turns out that the man who hired the hitman is a senator. He's trying to start a war so he can run for president. The contents of the USB key are proof of his plot. Annie hesitates for a long time, but finally reveals the contents of the disk to the public, even though she knows it won't make her life any easier.